This has to deal with the State Department accidentally publishing papers basically boosting damage caused to the Venezuelan economy. We're talking about Venezuela. Paul, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, so this is one of those things that we've been saying for a while, is that the U.S. government is obviously behind the coup attempt and is obviously in support of Juan Guaido. We had called out numerous times his education in the United States, his connections with the CIA, and we've been loudly waving the flag like this is the United States enabling a coup in Venezuela again.
They're maintaining their rate. They have to do one a year or they don't get a sandwich.
So if you go to the State Department's website, they have a list of all of the sanctions that have been brought against Venezuela, all of the fact sheets that they have about this is what's going on. It's largely, if you want to know what the U.S. government wants you to think about what's going on in Venezuela, that's where you would turn. But this was a report that was released on April 24th that was relatively quickly deleted, that the Gray Zone Project was able to obtain a full copy of, that basically they tacitly admit that yes, indeed, Juan Guaido is their guy, and this was their doing. Entitled Actions on Venezuela, the document boasts that the U.S. policy had effectively prevented the Venezuelan government from participating in the international market and has led to the freezing of its overseas assets. It read like a sadistic celebration of Washington's retribution against the Venezuelan population as a whole, the kind of collective punishment which is illegal according to Article 33 of the Geneva Convention. Again, the United States does not agree to any of these international treaties anymore. There's no way of holding us accountable to it, but it certainly looked bad that the United States was basically admitting to this. In their list of key outcomes of U.S. actions, the number one thing that they listed as a key outcome as a result of U.S. actions was that Juan Guaido announced that he was president of the country.
In an election in which he did not participate in.
Yeah, so if you're saying that the key result of your actions was this guy committing a coup, then you're saying that you are enabling the coup. So maybe we shouldn't publicly admit to that. So this was kind of a funny and relatively unusual straight up gaffe that the State Department made. And it's really amazing that the Gray Zone Project was able to get a copy of this and share it publicly. And this is one of those things where when people come at you and say, oh, but Maduro's a dictator and the United States needs to go in to help the Venezuelan people. And we say, yeah, but sanctions against Venezuela have killed 40,000 people, study finds. And people will say, oh, but the U.S. government isn't instigating a coup. Juan Guaido is legitimate. Like, no, the U.S. government literally says our actions have led to Juan Guaido, and pat ourselves on the back. Aren't we doing so great overturning that government? That's socialist. So, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, like I said, I think that they just need that yearly sandwich again. I mean, it's been 60 years. We've had 60 coups, including overthrows of democratic governments, changing of the vote, military intervention. They're just trying to make sure they maintain that record, because if they can't do that, how are they going to say their budget's worth it? But no, for real. This goes back to oil, because we also know, thanks to Bolton, thanks to other things, that they want the Brazilian crude, and the only place, Venezuelan crude, and the only place that the Venezuelans could even get that crude processed was in a refinery in Texas, which is why they said, what was it, Chevron or Citgo that?
Citgo.
It's Citgo. Yeah. Okay, so Citgo is a Venezuelan company. Mm-hmm. And so the other thing that's going into the sanctions is, which is just like what happened with Iran, it's like we have this playbook that we have completely laid out, and we know what we're going to do ahead of time, which also makes it really easy to predict what the U.S. is going to do ahead of time. This is just what the U.S. does. This is exactly what we do. This is what we've always done when we need crude oil, when we need oil to back our petrodollar, to make our economy work, so we can give these subsidies, so that this entire system that's just getting strung out, that needed to end decades ago, can continue. And as a consequence, we might make the plan a little better if we try and stop it.
So there's a couple of things before I hand it over to Paul. Just again, a reminder, Juan Guaido was not elected as president of Venezuela. He did not even participate during that election, but yet somehow he's saying that he's the president. He's inciting conflict in Venezuela, causing a civil war there, or potentially causing what could be a civil war there, which would be a huge, massive humanitarian crisis in South America. The only way that the Venezuelan people can actually make their government work for them is if it's solved by the Venezuelan people themselves. And more importantly, too, on April 30th, there was a failed coup attempt in Venezuela. It failed miserably. And the thing is that, at this point right now, I think we're seeing the Trump administration slowly back away from this, which is a good thing. I don't know how long they will be because they've been talking about this nonstop. But this was such an embarrassment that why would they want to still continue getting involved unless they're really thirsty for that oil? But it's really showing just how far the United States will go to cause a coup in Venezuela. And we can't afford that because already as it currently stands, at least how it stands right now, most of the, government and military officials are standing with the current president. So it's a crisis that's happening there. The people are still with the president. And while there was these pictures that you see on CNN or MSNBC where you're seeing protesters yell and chant and scream against, quote unquote, the government, they're really screaming against Guaido for being there in the first place.
Yeah, I remember I don't really do a whole lot on my personal Facebook page, but the post I've had up for the last 2 weeks or so is, what is it? Who was it on CNN that said, look at the Maduro's officials firing on civilians, and then someone comments on Twitter below, you have it wrong. Those are the opposition people firing on it. It's, I always have the standpoint in life that everything always makes sense, even if I can't understand it, even if I can't explain it. It's not my place to say it doesn't make sense. But this is absurd. This is America today, 2019. Here's another thing I'll say. Since we're out of all these agreements, since we're out of the Geneva Convention, wouldn't it be nice, because I know that Trump's going to try and get himself pardoned. At some point, he's going to step down or something. He's going to try and get himself pardoned. Wouldn't it be nice if we went back to the criminal justice court and then we're like, he's pardoned with us. You guys can have him. I mean, I can't think of another way to deal with this.
Yeah.
This has to be fixed, and it has to be us that fixes it.
All right, Paul.
Yeah. A couple of really important things to point out about this story. First of all, it's written by Anya Parampil. I hope I'm saying that last name right. She is one of the journalists who is right now part of the Embassy Protection Collective and is occupying the Venezuelan embassy in Washington, D.C., which, if you're not aware, Code Pink, a couple of other journalists and activists are occupying the embassy at the invitation of the Venezuelan ambassador and Venezuelan diplomats who were expelled from the country. So it's now American activists that are occupying the embassy in an attempt to prevent Juan Guaido's appointed ambassador from taking over the embassy and trying to do official positions there. Now, they've shut off power to the embassy, which is an odd parallel to the United States interfering with the electric grid in Venezuela. But it is amazing that this is a journalistic report essentially coming out of the Venezuelan embassy at the moment. In this report, Parampil says, in a recent interview with the Gray Zone, Venezuela's ambassador to the United Nations, Samuel Moncada, characterized the deleted State Department fact sheet as a, quote, a list of confessions. Quote, imagine if any other country says it's proud of saying that we are destroying the economy of our neighbor. We are proud that we destroyed the political system of our neighbor, and we are proud they are suffering. They're saying we're waging war against Venezuela. The ambassador went on to accuse the U.S. of engaging in bullying rather than in international diplomacy. And he's 100% correct.
Mm-hmm. It's a crisis. And again, why is the American taxpayer why is the government using the American taxpayers' money to interfere with another country's foreign affairs or their own internal affairs? It's ridiculous. We don't need to be involved in this. All right. I don't think we would like it if some other country got involved in our affairs. And I know people would say, well, what about Russiagate? Russiagate is a house. It's over. It's done.
Even
it's
if
over.
it's people care more about a hoax.
Yeah.
Or even if you want to give it like misunderstanding that they thought happened, it doesn't really matter what way you want to look at it. It's absurd that the U.S. and the media can have the two-faced audacity of simultaneously backing multiple coups and invasions of other countries while simultaneously saying that $100,000 worth of memes will take down the America.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. Not in this day and age. I mean, it's just so stupid. And this is, again, where we got to get involved and call our elected officials and ask them where they really stand on this. And we got to hold these people accountable. Elections count, and this is why during this 2020 presidential election cycle, we all need to get involved and fight for a better future.